Okay. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. This is Brock Beard from lastcar.info. Thanks so much to those of you who could check out the premiere of episode 8 of Rise of the Field Fillers, which is just wrapped up just now. I know a little bit of a different time than our usual shows, which usually midweek or later at night. But with everything else going on here, not to mention all the action that happened this weekend at Bristol, which we will talk about here on the show today, figured go ahead and fit that in there while we had a free day here after the NASCAR action wrapped up from Thursday through Saturday. And what a weekend indeed that it was. Thank you again for checking out on that. I know that this particular episode of Rise of the Field Fillers was quite a while in production. As you noticed from the clips from the interview, that interview was actually done last November, around the time that I was actually finishing up work on the Arnold Motorsports episode, several episodes. I think it was episode 3 of the series. So other ones I want to kind of build up to before getting to this one. Big thanks to Andy himself for giving a fantastic interview. He's really literally the engine of that whole thing. You notice that there's a lot more interview segments in that than other previous episodes there. And you can see why. Man has just incredible stories, absolutely unfiltered. And there was very little that I left on the cutting room floor there. So I hope that that was something that you certainly enjoyed and got a different look, as always in this series, a different look at the series through the eyes of teams and drivers that had more difficulties there, both as field fillers and even earlier in their careers. Kind of bringing it full circle, in particular to episode 1, with the fact that Belmont himself went against Jimmy Hensley for Rookie of the Year in '92, and was really kind of at the inception of the trend that kind of led up to 2004. So he was kind of a link that kind of brought both those stories together for sure. So definitely wanted to kind of bring that up. Really enjoyed putting that one together. Big thanks to Brian Holman, as always, for his fantastic pictures that he shared on that, especially for ones like this where you don't really have a lot of video clips to work with. It's certainly a challenge getting enough visual aids in there. But Brian had, as always, an incredible collection from even his time in the Daytona Dash series, eventually the Goodies Dash series, and even ARCA and the Cup series as well. So again, big thanks to him on that as well, because that really led a hand to making this project. And so the next episode of Rise of the Field Fillers is in the works. It was announced at the end of that video. If you haven't seen the video yet and you're checking out this, I won't spoil it, but it is there in that video, and you can check that out. So that one is still in the works. I also am working on some other short form videos. But before all of that, of course, we got trackside coverage coming back up again this week for the Las Vegas Motor Speedway. The first time I'll be covering the action at that track, and the South Point 400 weekend. Just finished my credential approval process this past week, and we will be heading out Wednesday afternoon. We're hoping to get the magnet in very soon. It hasn't arrived yet. But hopefully it'll be in time that we can get that set up there on the side of the car. And we will be heading down there and, of course, stay on the Twitter feed at LastCar on Brock throughout the weekend as we provide additional coverage from everything going on in Sin City. But before we get to any of that, we absolutely have to talk about all the craziness from Bristol this weekend. And where do you even, frankly, start? I got to say, this was a weekend where I ended up being a lot busier than I thought it was going to be, both between finishing this video and just other things going on the side. So there was actually not much of this these last 3 races that I saw live. So I do apologize for those of you guys who are waiting for a live stream last night there for the show. That was not possible. We actually had a wonderful dinner that evening there at the downtown to support our local foundry. We actually have a foundry here in town, and they do a fundraiser out there, so we were able to participate in that. I don't think I shared any pictures from that. I probably should do that too. But I did catch the race afterwards and finished watching it about midnight Pacific time. So I don't think anybody was going to be up in time to watch a live stream that late at night. So I decided to, again, stick with the original plan to have the show today. So Kevin Harvick and Chase Elliott, that's certainly a big part of the story there. As you saw on the earlier, if you follow on my Twitter feed, you'll see the fantasy picks that Last Bro and I make. And with the fact that I picked Denny Hamlin and he picked Chase Elliott, you could probably imagine the way the last 50 or 60 laps of that race actually sounded here at Last Car headquarters. It was quite exciting in that sense. If there was ever any doubt before, Bristol is back, and the rivalries and everything else in between. Apparently, no significant damage or anything from the dirt that was used on the track during that stormy weekend back in the spring to this past weekend here. Decent racing in the Truck Series, if a little crash filled. Xfinity with a fantastic finish, and the Cup Series one being as dramatic as one would expect. A cutoff race to end the round of 16 and begin the round of 12. A lot of blows traded between Chase Elliott and Kevin Harvick, and a lot of lap traffic once again becoming the factor. We saw lap traffic be a factor really, especially in these last few years, even if the finish wasn't necessarily as dramatic as it turned out to be in this particular case. We still have seen it play a big role in it. And again, as I've always said, that's part of racing that is just always going to be there. You see it in the Rise of the Field fillers episodes and everything. It's always a factor in making these finishes tighter. And if a driver is able to navigate that traffic quicker than anybody behind them, that is something exciting to watch as well. And if they are unable to, well, that's part of the game. They can give and take away just as easily as anybody else. We saw a lot of the same challengers there. Josh Bilicki in particular seemed to be having a lot of issues in the closing laps of that race. It was a factor in the Christopher Bell incident that had damage to the right side of his car and dropped him back, as well as the Chase Elliott and Kevin Harvick one, where Bilicki was in front of Elliott. But again, when you are off the pace, there's not that many places for you to go. But ideally, if you're one of the leaders, you have options. We saw, especially out of Kyle Larson and Chase Elliott, the ability to run any groove that they really wanted, even Denny Hamlin to an extent, but especially those Hendrick guys. So if they ever wanted to get around any of these lap cars, they certainly had the tools at their disposal. And if they weren't able to, well, that's part of the game and part of what makes NASCAR racing so exciting, and especially at Bristol, where, again, this lap traffic is much more of an issue. The dangers of lap traffic can be maybe a bit more exaggerated at tracks like a Darlington or a super speedway, and it requires different strategies to get around them. But it's you could have literally, you can't ban slow cars. It just doesn't work that way. Other cars will be out there, and if it's somebody that's just off the pace, they've tried to legislate them out of there any way possible. And they're always going to be a factor there. If you had just two cars out there, I guarantee you that one car out there that's leading by 6 laps is complaining that he has to deal with this other guy out there all the time. They're never going to be right on top of each other. It's much more likely that you're going to have fast cars and slow cars. And the slowest cars today are probably faster than the slow cars that we had in 2004 back in the field fillers time. One thing that Andy Belmont said that I think really rung true was the fact that maybe back then that helped make the field more equal, rather than having the field fillers or teams back in the lineup be really far off, like maybe what you see in the ARCA race this past week as well. Now they're a lot closer. You have them with the time that's at least somewhat reasonable that you can get around them. And I never really thought of that myself until the discussion with him. But that certainly, I think, is one thing that could certainly be argued from that. Kevin Harvick reverting back to perhaps the way that we saw him back in 2002, 2003, when he was Happy Harvick, or as in the title of this live stream, the Head Ripper Harvick, I guess is the thing now. The fact that he was absolutely incensed. It looked like he had de-aged about 15 years there on pit road when he was smashing his helmet into the roof of his car from that whole deal. Obviously, Twitter has already had more than enough time to chew over this with the typical maturity that is expected of any debate involving the most popular driver in the sport. But Chase Elliott and Kevin Harvick probably both have reason to be upset, and both have reason to believe that they got back at each other and had some retribution on their own side there. Whether it's the fact that Harvick now still goes into the round of 12 without a win, potentially setting up another Ryan Newman situation where he could even make the last 4 without winning a single race, or potentially a Matt Crafton situation where he can win the championship without one, to a situation with Chase Elliott where he's trying to stack up points and keep pace with Kyle Larson here, where Larson is just absolutely on another planet here with a lot of these runs that he's been having. The fact that Kevin Harvick was able to drill Larson over and over again, switch him this way and that way on consecutive moves entering the corner, and the fact that the 5 didn't spin out in either of those cases. Sometimes it's just, when it's your year, it's your year. We've seen this kind of magic before out of the 5 team with Mark Martin back in 2009. Unfortunately, he did fall short in the championship to Jimmy Johnson. Are we going to see something like that with the current point system? Hard to tell, but it's certainly something that's possible here. But one way or the other, crazy final moments. I'm reminded of a Darlington race we had back in 2007 where Jeff Gordon's car was overheating and you had cars blowing engines left and right. But NASCAR, instead of throwing a caution for every little thing that was happening, let that final run play out 50, 60 laps. And people dropping out and wondering who's going to actually make it to the line. This is the closest I've seen to something like that in recent years on anything other than a super speedway. It was really survival of the fastest. Drivers trying to do the very best so they could actually get there to the finish line one way or the other. And it was no guarantee. If somebody was really fast, like Chase Elliott, like Denny Hamlin, like Christopher Bell, like these other competitors up there, they were one flat tire away from dropping far back in the field. And even with, again, another consequence of the lap traffic, much like we saw at Richmond last week, where you had very little attrition, nobody was that far off the lead, even at a track like Bristol. James Davison seemed to be particularly struggling. He tweeted earlier today that they had something fundamentally wrong with the car that they just could not fix. But Davison further back in the lineup, but other drivers still managing to stay within about 10 to 15 laps of the leader. And so if somebody had a problem with 30, 40 laps to go, they could potentially have a very catastrophic day. Chase Elliott's pit crew having trouble with the left front fender on the number 9 car while changing the tires. Issues with Christopher Bell again during all of that. It very much played a factor. We very nearly saw Kyle Busch tumble out of the playoffs in this one and seeing the points change. And as much as I've been very critical of NBC, they do once again prove to be the broken clock here. And once or twice a day, they somehow find a way to actually do things properly. In this case, with the split screen that they did towards the end and tracking the attempts of both Tyler Reddick and Eric Almirola to try to pass a couple cars, knowing who they needed to pass, I thought they did a surprisingly good job. And I will applaud them for certainly doing so. Much like I'm reminded of the Roval a couple of years ago, where Almirola was in very much the same situation, trying to make the next round and tracking who he had in front of him and if there were lead lap cars and so forth there. Certainly at Bristol, where the confines are even tighter than the Roval, I'm sure the logistics of that were even more challenging. So again, decent job by them, and I had to approve of that watching it there. It was very compelling drama there at the end. Something that you can't really stage in this particular case, even with stage racing rather. But in that last stage, it playing out long enough that you have a long green flag run and seeing if anybody can get there or if somebody's temper is just going to boil over, like when Denny Hamlin jumped into Larson, just tired of following him there all that long time and seeing an advantage, but then very easily tire cuts down, just like the issue that he had with Chase Elliott at Phoenix those years ago. Ends up dropping him back in the lineup, but then he gets back in the lineup and actually gets a top 10 out of it after so many other drivers had problems. So it's never over till it's over. And that's what makes, I think, NASCAR racing some of the most compelling racing, even though it's not always guaranteed to be like this one week after the other. But at its best, you do see some competition and the advantage of close racing where contact can happen and it doesn't just immediately take you out of the race and you got to pull behind the wall. Even with the crash clock, you got guys that can come back out there and stay competitive. So lots of craziness going on behind the scenes. Certainly the issue with Kevin Harvick and Chase Elliott in the infield then. Now, you got all these other people getting in the way. I don't know who all these other people are, splitting them up there. It's, I imagine that a Donnie and Cale situation from 79 seems less and less likely. And especially since Kevin Harvick was the guy that pushed Keselowski into Jeff Gordon's grasp at Texas a couple of years ago, with Harvick now as one of those parties there. Is this going to be something that we're going to see continued at Las Vegas, or is it something that's going to be more a Talladega or Roval situation as this round continues? Hard to say, but it'll be something that we'll definitely be looking forward to checking out this week. I know there was a lot of discussion about the media member. I believe it was Jordan that was there in the infield that was videotaping Chase Elliott and Harvick. Again, I think the drivers handled it as best they could. If they wanted it to be a private conversation, just go in the hauler. I think when you're stepping in front of media members, and say try to get them to stop filming or something. Nowadays, unfortunately, for better or for worse, everybody's got a camera on their phone. Everybody can film whatever's happening. And it's not a new thing. This is what happened with Kurt Busch at Homestead back in 2011 in that situation. So if they want any semblance of privacy, they have resources for that. And I'm glad that they were talking it out. I'm glad that it wasn't any situation there. And again, nothing against Jordan at all. He's doing his job just like any more than I or anybody else would, filming what's happening at the track. And so kudos to people that were going in there and trying to get the quotes and the moments from there. This is a dramatic moment, a dramatic race. Both drivers had a lot at stake. Both drivers now advanced to the round of 12. And we do want to know what's happening. They're public figures and everything else. And, you got to play it by ear as best you can. You try to get the story whenever you could. I usually don't really focus on the bigger teams out there because that's not really my bread and butter, unless one of them falls to the bottom 5, and then it absolutely is. Kudos to the people down there getting the shots. And now everybody's been able to generate all the memes that they could possibly stand from all the footage and everything collected there. So I think everybody left. I wouldn't say everybody left happy. Certainly the two of them didn't. But Kyle Larson with the victory, finally winning at Bristol, bringing the 5 car back there since I think Casey Kane won there years ago, back when the Gen 6 was new. Lots to certainly talk about there too. Let's see. Oh, goodness. Thank you for the super chat there, Beast of Metal, as well. We'll start with your thoughts on Chase's role in the finish, both as a contender and as lap traffic. Thank you for the super chat, of course. A little bit of overlap with the kind of the lead-in right here, right now. It's tricky. We talk about lap traffic as just being lap traffic that's just out there trying to complete laps. And certainly Chase Elliott isn't in the same situation there. You have a driver that's out there with fresh tires and a grudge out there to compete as best they can. When I saw Chase Elliott, and especially Kyle Busch earlier than that, you remember a little bit earlier when Kyle Busch had a tire go down, he came back out right in front of the leaders. And I was reminded very much of 2001 at Sears Point, where Kevin Harvick himself, as a matter of fact, came back out after cutting down a tire towards the end in front of Robbie Gordon and Tony Stewart. This ultimately resulted in Robbie Gordon throwing a completely unusual block on Harvick in turn 7 that opened up the bottom lane for Tony Stewart to get by and make the winning pass. I was wondering if a situation like that was going to happen with Kyle Busch, and both drivers actually had to pull the high lane to let him go by. Certainly with Chase Elliott's case, again, I am kind of in the camp of no quarter for the leader. That if you go out there and you take off some other guy out there and give him a reason, Matt Kenseth's situation, I think, certainly shows that any driver is capable of that. And something like that may just happen one time or the next. Now, do I think it's a great solution to have drivers out there constantly blocking and wrecking each other out of there? Well, no, but at the same time, I don't really like the team order aspect either. That we've seen from races recently as well. At least discussions where people seem to be very frank about team orders, whether it was the Ross Chastain or Kurt Busch situation back in Atlanta. I think that we need to come to a point where we need to realize what we do want in the sport or not. I do think NASCAR has adopted a lot of Formula One attributes, whether intentionally or not, whether it's a charter system or just this reduction in the field size or otherwise. But I don't think we've had a really good, frank discussion about, what teammates are doing for each other out there. I think with Chase Elliott's case, I don't view that as much of a team situation. It's more like just straight vengeance out there. And it's good that Chase didn't wreck Harvick. I think that would have been worse. I still feel again vindicated at my statement earlier that I think Chase Elliott is one of the most aggressive blockers out there. He seems ever since I posted that, he seems determined to prove myself right on that. I don't mean to toot my horn too much on that, but I got a lot of flack on that initially. And now all of a sudden you got the DiBenedetto thing at Daytona, you got this thing here, and who knows what's going to happen down the line here. And again, you can view that as a positive or a negative as best you can. Certainly Kevin Harvick fans are going to view it negative, and Chase Elliott fans are going to view it as a positive. There's a lot of bias out there between one or the other because both these drivers are such popular figures representing very different positions in the sport, whether it's a newcomer and a newly crowned champion or one of the oldest veterans in the field, if not certainly the playoffs itself. I think from a viewing standpoint, where Ryan Newman's last place finish was already locked up, and I was just sitting there, just kind of watching it as a fan, more or less. Hours later, I just thought it was just entertaining, and the media is certainly looking for things like that, just as they had with the Matt Kenseth and Joey Logano situation. And anytime that 22 was near the 20, everybody was waiting for something to happen. Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. But again, it's going to be interesting. I don't know, and I know that probably the TV viewership for Vegas is probably going to be a little better than it ordinarily would have been just because of this. Now, again, NASCAR's had times where things have gone back and forth. Certainly after Daytona in '79, there was a very cold Richmond race where neither Yarborough or Allison were much of a factor in it, and certainly didn't come to blows again. But it did bring more fans out to watch that race, or more media to cover it than perhaps would have ordinarily. And we might actually see very much the same thing next week in Vegas, especially we have the reduced horsepower again for one of the last times this year. I believe Kansas and Texas, they're going to run it before the season's up. We're going to see a different kind of racing, a different kind of issues with lap traffic. How is the Chase Elliott and Harvick thing going to manifest? It didn't seem like it had any indications of cooling down yesterday, but we'll see. I don't know how much that answers your question, but certainly entertaining. But beyond that, hard to say. No Tires, Just Gas. Saw your question there also about I think that Larson's NASCAR's new most popular driver. Hard to say. It'll be interesting to find out in the polling. I don't think that I think the Chase Elliott, just his own group of fans, the Bill Elliott fans that no longer could vote for Bill Elliott and now have kind of dogpiled on it. And it seems like there's a lot of overlap with Junior's fan base, of course, since Chase drove for Junior and now drives for Hendrick. I think that's a lot to overcome. I think Kyle Larson could make a very good case for it. I wouldn't be entirely surprised if he pulled it off. Whether or not I think it's possible, though, not really. I think Chase Elliott, NASCAR itself has, seemingly taken every effort to make sure that Chase Elliott is the most exposed driver. And the broadcast partners have been in lockstep with that, whether it's Fox's promos where you have Attack on Titan kind of arrangement here with three smaller drivers like Logano and Kyle Busch, and then a giant Chase Elliott head behind them with planes flying around his head. It's pretty clear who they want to have be the face of the sport. And NASCAR's always been about that, whether it would be Dale Earnhardt or Jeff Gordon or Jimmy Johnson or anybody else. They have their choices, they have their favorites, and they have their drivers that they don't like. And if you have ever doubt that, again, just listen to Andy Belmont's interview from that episode earlier tonight. That's certainly the case. So, again, it's a frustrating situation. If I were there, I would have been interested to talk with Josh Bilicki about it, because it seemed like he was unfortunately involved in a couple of those incidents. I know there was a lot of apprehension about David Starr because this is his first Cup race at Bristol since 2011. And of course, in the Xfinity series, he's had an unfortunate series of incidents between the Noah Gragson situation back at Homestead, which again, I think is just a racing deal, wrong place, wrong time. If Gragson just picked the lower line and drove some more conservative laps, which he could have done, he probably wouldn't have been near the area. But how would he have known to even do that? He probably did that just because it was easiest to do it. Racing deal. Situation with Tommy Joe Martins, it's unfortunate. Wrong place, wrong time. Martins could have picked a different line. He could have picked a different line, one way or the other. I don't think it was malicious that they blocked Martins. And as much as painful as it was, that it would have been great if Martins beat Allmendinger to the stage win. Again, an unfortunate situation. Now, when you had the situation with Martins again at Bristol this week in the Xfinity race, that one actually kind of looked, unfortunately, more towards the 44, where it kind of slid up the track, one way or the other. Again, it's a tough situation when you have a driver that's a common denominator. They're getting a lot of attention. Starr is, a more experienced driver than I think a lot of people give him credit for. He's, I don't think he's in a situation necessarily as some of these other drivers that just can't keep up the pace, and we've seen him actually be more of a risk out there. And in fact, even in this race, other than maybe the first few laps, he didn't seem to be as much of a problem for a lot of traffic going by as much as the Rick Ware cars, especially, again, Davison with the issue that the 15 had from the very start. Was behind by open track, and then Bilicki later in the event just seemed to be just wrong place, wrong time. there's a lot you can look at there. But again, it would have been interesting to kind of get Balicki's view of it. I don't know if I'll be able to get a follow-up on that here in Vegas, but maybe that'll be something to kind of look at. Let's see. Okay, I guess getting the Cup lineup here from this. A few other things in the lineup here too. J.J. Yaley has once again had a great run with Rick Ware Racing. It seems like whenever he gets in any of these cars, he's able to get out of the 30th or worse spots that the team usually finds itself in. In this case, no exception, finishing in 27th spot, ahead of even Christopher Bell after the aforementioned issues the number 20 team had. Chase Elliott back in 25th. Looking further up in the lineup, it was good to see both Eric Jones and Matt DiBenedetto end up in the top 10. Two of the most iconic cars actually finished 1 and 2 with a 21 ahead of the 43 in the 2001 spring Bristol race. That was won by Elliott Sadler. The paint scheme commemorated at Darlington just a couple weeks ago. So good to see both those teams up there. Jones in particular seems to really have a knack for Bristol. Even when he drove the 77 car, he had good runs there. I think Pocono is another track that we've seen him outperform his equipment on, even with that team. And now that he's re-signed with that program, I'm hoping to see some bigger and better things out of him next year and beyond. We do have the Mountain Dew tonight. No stackers with it, but I do have that here for the show here tonight. Let's see. Well, rough day for old Tony Sauce here. I definitely want to bring this shirt out here because that poor guy just had another difficult weekend here. Really pleased with how they did this design here. This is one of the really kind of throwbacks that didn't get a lot of attention back in the spring race at Darlington this year. The Alan Quickie throwback there to the old Hardee's scheme. I thought the NASCAR did a surprisingly good job on this one here. But unfortunately, the Dude Wipes car ends up being at the bottom of the field after finishing last in the Bristol Dirt race. He finishes 35th in this one after a couple bad hits. A couple bad hits for a lot of smaller teams out there. Unfortunate for B.J. McLeod's effort. Had a very hard hit, just wrong place, wrong time with the situation with the 38. And then getting rear-ended by the 77 of Justin Haley at the same time, all three with very significant damage. But especially McLeod's effort. Don't usually see him in a lot of wrecks. Bristol a couple years ago, I mentioned on the weekend preview article, had a potential shot at a top 25 run in the spring of 2020 when he got moved to June during the pandemic. Had a good run in a leased Rick Ware car. Was up there just kind of minding his own business. Got involved in one of these incidents that Denny Hamlin and Chase Elliott triggered. And once again, one of these small teams, wrong place, wrong time, gets damaged, drops further back in the lineup. This was another example of it here. I don't know how much better they could have run because, again, the pace was just torrid for so much of it. But he was at least keeping all fenders on it like he has with this program. The Live Fast team, we don't talk about him too much on even this show, and they barely mentioned him at all outside of this. Good to see them, it's very rare you see them get in an accident like that. But so they're trying to conserve equipment as best they can. And hopefully they can rebound in Vegas and get a solid run with their car intact. We'll certainly find out from there. Justin Haley knocked out in that event as well. Quinn Houff with another just disastrous evening in the 0-0 here. Not sure what's going on with that team. I know there were reports about the team's possible, whether it's running or not next year. I don't have any other information on that at the moment. I don't want to spread any incorrect reports about this. Hopefully we'll get some more information this weekend and find out. But unfortunate deal for Quinn Houff there in the 34th spot. Had a couple of hard hits in the later stages there and knocked the 0-0 out of the lineup there in 34th. Davison, just by being able to run there, some multiple laps down, finishing in 33rd. Cole Custer with all kinds of problems was involved in one of those incidents back in the 28th spot there. I think that was the one with Newman. Newman, as you saw in the feature on the article, gosh, we haven't even talked about the last place finisher at all in this so far. Newman, your last place finisher in that, his first last place run since 2019 at Kansas, and his first, bringing the first last place run for the number 6 since David Pearson back in 1965. I actually did a feature on that race back when I did my short-lived Throwback Thursday features a few years ago, and that's actually linked in the article. So if you want to feature on both the most recent last place run for the 6 and the first one at Bristol, I can certainly compare the two there in that case. That actually was the first ever last place run For David Pearson, for Newman, I believe it is the 12th of his Cup Series career. He and Eric Almirola kind of a lot more last place finishes than I would have perhaps expected if I didn't have the stats directly in front of me. I would have perhaps expected other drivers besides them to be higher up the rankings. But Almirola, of course, himself still staying up there in the 2021 NASCAR Cup Series championship as we near these final few rounds through the rest of the season. But mentioning, of course, we had the playoff elimination. So Michael McDowell out of the cut, which is unfortunate. Kurt Busch just missed the setup here. It was unfortunate. It looked like they were going to really have something going. Mentioned Almirola and Tyler Reddick trying to chase down drivers in front of them, just coming up just a couple points short and end up on the wrong side of the cut line here. So we have our lineup of 12 set up here with now Kevin Harvick, Christopher Bell, Brad Keselowski, and Joey Logano just behind the cut line, looking to get a good foothold in the playoffs in Las Vegas and moving forward. And of course, again, we'll find out some more information on that. But yeah, thoroughly exciting. I loved a lot of the teams that were working their way back up the lineup. This is something also that doesn't get seen that often, perhaps happens more often than we find out. It was certainly good to see Alex Bowman, rather, being able to bounce back from some issues earlier. Almirola actually with the car smoking, that ended up seeming to be decisive in their being a factor, but they could have lost a lot more time than they did. So kudos to them. But Bowman seemed to just completely miss the setup, and even William Byron, too. The fact that both of them got into the top 10, or even the top 5, rather, fantastic runs. Both of them leapfrogging out of the bottom 4 and on their way in. I mean, to the point that you got all 4 Hendrick guys now making the next round, the round of 12, going into races like Vegas, like Talladega, like even the Roval, where Chase Elliott seems to just own the keys to that place. It could be a real strong Hendrick trend in these next 3 races here. Now, we've had a lot of ins and outs this year. We've seen Truex be dominant at points and then drop off the pace. Are we going to see Hendrick keep that going, or is somebody else going to catch him? And if so, who really is that going to be? Going to be really interesting. I think we got a good group going forward, and that'll be something to look at. Keselowski kind of worked out some strategy getting back up there. Again, it's surprising. It used to be that Keselowski and Kyle Busch, they would be just shoo-ins to have either a win or maybe a top 3 finish at Bristol. Just not the case right now. Whether it's a lack of practice or qualifying, as Kyle indicated back at Darlington with his last place run there, or very near last place. That was McDowell that night. Again, it's still kind of a toss up there. But nowadays, guys like Kyle Larson can get up there, and Kevin Harvick still trying to punch his ticket from one round to the next. He's going to have to start from the back of the field again in this next round. Past Vegas winner, if I'm not mistaken, back in the, it seems like whenever he ran that freaky fast paint job for Stewart-Haas Racing, he was pretty much unstoppable. Wasn't sure if the Subway paint scheme was going to be as much of a winning paint scheme, but came very close, but no cigar there. 71 laps led for Harvick, 175 for Larson, 129 for Chase Elliott, and the Hooters streak, the losing streak, continues after it looked like it was going to end here. If I'm not mistaken, I believe the August of 91 race at Bristol was Kawicki's first win with the Hooters paint scheme. I know he won it that night when the surface was coming up. I believe that was his first one since Rockingham in 1990. I'm trying to remember without looking it up. But I know that Hooters came on in the spring Atlanta race that year. And, of course, Kawicki came back and won the spring race at Bristol in 92 in that same time, too. But we haven't seen the Hooters car win since Kawicki's last win at Pocono in June of 92. And that streak continues, as does the McDonald's streak. Bubba Wallace looked like he was recovering pretty well from the damage to the fender of his car. Couldn't quite make that work out. Ends up back in the 16th spot. He ends up getting tangled with Daniel Suarez. Suarez was a bit further back in the lineup for a lot of this race, but ended up with Bubba Wallace with some damage to the number 99 car. Hopefully they can turn things around too, but it looks like they're just trying to make ends meet as best they can these final few rounds before the season wraps up in Phoenix. Let me see. Anybody else that really stood out in that? Didn't see much out of Austin Dillon, much like at the dirt race at Bristol. I'm kind of surprised Ryan Blaney got fourth. I thought he was really off at Richmond and Darlington. At least it felt that way. But yeah, good to see him kind of turn that around a bit. Yeah, Eric Jones in the 43 Austin. Exactly. Yeah, great run for him for sure. The Whataburger roadblock. Yeah, there you go. I know everybody's got different feelings on David Starr. Again, it's, there's a lot of roadblocks out there that, you could point at one way or the other. And then actually the ironic thing is a driver out there could be a championship guy and then everybody's yelling at them to get off the track. It's a very humbling sport in that way. You can even just be off the pace like Dale Jr. was at Las Vegas in 2004 and just completely miss the setup and to the point that you got to get out of the way. But that's just the pace of the sport and the kind of things that happen. But that makes that kind of interesting to see. Let's see. So we talked about Ryan Newman on that. We'll cover all three of the races here. We certainly got to talk about the absolute insanity of the Xfinity Series finish on Friday. Again, I had just the worst timing this week. I had already made preparations because we had the thing on Saturday, which again was, we were out of the house here basically after the end of stage one for the Cup race. But the Xfinity race that started. I was still at work for the start of that one. So I had to kind of catch up on that after getting back. And then I'd stepped out of the room for the finish. I was like, well, this is pretty much well in hand. And then, of course, you get the craziest Bristol finish possible there moments later. And the Truck Series race, again, same thing as Saturday. Just watched the beginning of it. Had to catch up at the tail end of it there, too. In those cases, the last place was settled up pretty quick. Brett Moffitt eliminated in a crash there. His first last place run since the Atlanta race. Earlier this year, the number 02 FR8 auctions machine in both cases. They're a very hard hit. Unfortunate for him, especially since he was just coming back from an illness that had sidelined him since Darlington. Unfortunate that he ends up back in the lineup. Landon Castle, Bailey Curry, Ryan Vargas, and Matt Mills rounding out the bottom five there. Josh Berry with some mechanical issues, but able to come back out on track, running multiple laps down, finishing in the 35th spot. As Michael Annett misses out on making the playoffs in the Xfinity Series. But certainly all of this very secondary to the crazy finish there. Justin Allgaier and Noah Gragson get flagged for speeding on pit road. Both of them start just devouring the pack, working their way up through the field. Gragson's run stalls a bit, but Allgaier gets back up there. We have an overtime finish where Allgaier now finds himself in the middle of a battle with drivers such as Riley Herbst, AJ Allmendinger, Austin Cindric, and all of them just go taking off into the first corner. Allgaier being a factor in that. He ends up bouncing off of Herbst's car. Fender starts rubbing. Cindric gets us up to Allmendinger. Allmendinger loses the lead, gets it back again. And Cindric just sliding into Allmendinger off the last corner, and very reminiscent indeed of the 1995 finish at the Cup Series race between Terry Labonte and Dale Earnhardt, both of them involved in an incident. Only in this case, unlike 1995, both cars sliding to the inside of the track, and with Allmendinger just edging Cindric by a fraction of a second, piling into the inside wall, and to the point where Allmendinger has to actually climb on top of his car to celebrate, then check into the ambulance. His car goes directly to inspection and not victory lane, and that ends up being ultimately the battle for the regular season championship coming down to the wire there. Not much more you could ask for than that. And really in the Xfinity Series, I know a lot of people were joking about this, but do we really need the next-gen car or just run the Xfinity Series car? Certainly races like this are certainly ones you can point at. Xfinity Series has turned into some of the most competitive racing we've seen in spite of all the craziness that we ended up seeing on Saturday as well. AJ Allmendinger is literally living his best life in that number 16 car. He's now won a Cup Series race there already at Indianapolis. And now he's running all these Xfinity races, and he's just dominating in there. And the colleague team it just seems like whatever win they just get that much stronger to the point that Cindric, who seemed to be the class of the field once Briscoe was full-time in the Cup Series, seemed like Cindric was just going to have free reign over the field. Allmendinger has just been so tough this year and truly doing the best he can. He's had so many times that he's restarted his career. He's restarted his career more times than I've restarted my computer in recent days. But you have just a tremendous effort there with him and the number 16 team doing the best runs that they can. And certainly with an exciting run like this, great way to start the postseason for the Xfinity Series in the races looking forward here. Looking further back here, Riley Herbst in third, Allgaier in fourth. Brandon Jones got routed out of the outside line coming to the green flag there. He dropped back to the fifth spot. Haley plowed into his teammate Allmendinger into turn one. Still ends up in the sixth spot there. Harrison Burton, Myatt Snyder, Sam Mayer from the 22nd spot, and Daniel Hemrick back in the 10th spot. He got routed out of the way. Brandon Jones was the fifth place finisher. So Hemrick with, again, some terrible luck at the absolute last minute, which is the most Daniel Hemrick thing that could possibly happen. But again, give a call to Jeremy Clements, 13th place finish, points his way into the playoffs. And much like we saw out of teams like Brandon Built Motorsports in years past, another great underdog to watch in the first rounds. And all that begins again this weekend in Vegas. And we'll certainly be following up with the 51 team and seeing how they perform. And if they can get a good foothold like Ryan Sieg's team had done in the past or Brandon Bilt's team, what else can happen on that end? So kudos to him. Ty Dillon, I mentioned this in the preview article. I've been very impressed with what he has been able to do in the 23 car. Certainly it's been a difficult year for him, trying to piece together runs with the Gaunt brothers, trying again even with the Joe Gibbs effort. The 54 had terrible luck to start the year. Found himself in a situation there where he could make some starts for Our Motorsports, running the 0-2 in relief of Brett Moffitt, and also standalone races in the 23. Ever since he's made that move, he has run so much better. And this Bristol race was another good example of it, up in the mix there. Certainly excited for him. Sage Karam with a great run out there too, and only his first non-road course race in the Xfinity Series, picking Bristol of all places. At one point was caught between Gregson and Allmendinger as they were trying, or Allgaier rather, as they were trying to get back up after the pit road penalties. Great run for him, finishing in the 16th spot. Joe Graff Jr. in 17th. And Gray Galding, how about this 18th place run? Jimmy Means Racing has had an awful year. You can even extend it into last year with all the mechanical failures they had with Cody Vanderwall through the early part of 2020. They get Gray Galding on there, who had some great runs with Bobby Daughter's team and standalone races at the super speedways. Means' team has just announced that they had issues with sponsorship for the last 5 races of this year, basically looking for pay drivers to fill out their schedule. Galding comes back for this one where he had a great-looking prism paint scheme there to promote a particular version for the Panini trading card company on the car, and they had a fantastic run out there, a 18th place finish there from starting 39th on the grid, which is very surprising given the fact that the last place qualifier was concerned that his car was smoking during the pace laps, and apparently that went away, and very fortunate that it did so they were able to enjoy the best run that they could possibly have under the circumstances there. Further back, so many other drivers having struggles here. Spencer Boyd had that problem with the leak, the fuel can dragged onto the track, the leaky fuel causing one of the officials to slip on the track there as well. So all kinds of crazy moments. I was kind of teleported back to 2002, where it seemed like you just had a disproportionate amount of accidents and craziness happening at Bristol. But I think Bristol has found a good new tradition here in the September weekend, where they're a bit in the middle of the playoffs here, for better or for worse, providing some dramatic action here. Brandon Brown, mentioned him briefly. He was 14th, actually, right between Ty Dillon and Jeremy Clements. Almost seems like a bad run for them because they seem to flirt with top 10s. Brandon Godovic in the 21st spot after Sam Hunt Racing got their first top 5 at Richmond with John Hunter Nemechek. Good to see they're still getting some runs within a couple laps of the leader here. Stephen Parsons had one of the nicest looking paint jobs out there. I really like that SoCal digital scheme. He'd run it before in the 76 for BJ McLeod's effort, but this time running the 5. That was good to see. Certainly at the same time there. All right. IndyCar race is entertaining. I haven't seen it yet. I've been kind of tied up with some other stuff here this afternoon, so I haven't checked that out. But I hear it was really good. Good to have the action back out here at the Mazda Raceway, Laguna Seca here. So actually not too far from headquarters here. But I haven't followed the IndyCar stuff as much lately. I used to follow it more week to week. But hopefully I had another good championship round and some more craziness going on that side there too. Let me see here. So we talked about that. We'll touch on the Truck Series race here as well. Chandler Smith being, well, whether or not he was allowed to get by or not. Team orders again, another issue that potentially came up there with him getting around John Hunter Nemechek. Chandler Smith getting the win in the last 5 laps of the event. Plenty of crashes out there. Sheldon Creed dominates the race, leading 189 laps, only to finish at the 19th spot. But Josh Rial ends up being your last place finisher, involved in an incident at the very beginning of the race there that ripped the nose off of his Toyota. Other competitors out there involved in the same incident able to complete a couple more laps, but Rial only completes 3 before his night is done. Racist Sorelli in the 39th spot there. Tanner Gray, after a hard hit to the driver's side at 38th. Tate Fogelman had an overheating issue there after rupturing the radiator on a restart. Drops back after another crash there after 30 laps completed. Chris Wright makes it 2 Randy Young trucks in the bottom 5, rounding out the group down there. Drew Dollar gets in a crash for the second time in as many starts. Back at Texas, I remember he tore up a truck there for KBM. Unfortunately, unable to improve on that this time around here, finishing the 34th spot. Howie DeSavino, the third, back in 28th with electrical issues. CJ McLaughlin, one of the drivers that's able to kind of survive the race to finish laps down. We'd seen him drop to the last place spot at Richmond for the Xfinity Series after that bizarre incident entering turn 3 with issues on Mike Harmon's car. This time around, gets back to the Truck Series, goes from 38th on the grid of 40 to finish in the 26th spot. So kudos to him there. Corey Roper in the 20th spot. Good to see him back in the lineup again after he didn't have any sponsor at Gateway. Gets a brand back on there. Actually finishes ahead of Parker Kligerman as well in that spot. Lawless Allen in 18th spot. Timmy Hill with some damage in 17th. Other competitors, Doug Kobe in his Truck Series debut from 30th on the grid to finish in the 12th spot there. I think that was one I mentioned in the article there. Great run for him there. I know Jack Wood has done some impressive runs there, the GMS 24, out of that truck for the first time in a while here. But again, Kobe really making the most, as one would expect from his pedigree in the modified ranks there, of course, finishing in the 12th spot there. Had to be one of the biggest surprises. Love the throwback scheme that they ran on Carson Hocevar's truck there, honoring, of course, Johnny Benson, Hocevar's mentor there in the number 42 truck. Hocevar still looking for his first win. Will it come in Vegas? We've had unusual things happen there before. We're going to find out this weekend, and that is for sure there. Hocevar starting 8th on the grid, finishing in the 6th spot after leading 6 laps there in the entry there. But Chandler Smith, your winner over Grant Enfinger there. Enfinger certainly wondering what could have been had he been able to still have that full-time ride at ThorSport there rather than sharing it with Christian Eckes and trying to make the best that he can with CR7's equipment for the few starts in between. We'll see what happens on that in the days and weeks coming up. All righty. So we'll jump into a couple other things here. I got some show and tell for you guys tonight. We'll do trivia again tonight as well, so that's going to be on here. Thank you again for tuning in here today. I know that it's a little bit unusual. Hope this makes up for the fact that we didn't have a show last night. But if you have any other questions or anything that I haven't covered from this past week, we'll certainly talk about that. That actually does remind me of something here. Let me get a little I get into that. So, a little bird told me, and by me, I mean everybody, that the Busch Clash is not going to be in Florida next year. I hear that it's going to be at the LA Memorial Coliseum. That's a little crazy, unexpected. Had no indication that was going to happen when it was first tweeted. I thought it was a joke. But then more reports came out, of course, in the final announcement earlier this week. The question is now, well, are we going to do some last car coverage at that event? The answer, ladies and gentlemen, is yes. Yes, it is. So I have already ordered a ticket for Last Pro. I am in the process of looking into credentials for that event. And so the first race for the next gen car is something that is now going to be on the schedule. What I'm most likely going to do is I'm going to just use one door magnet and run it for both the trip down there for the Clash at the Coliseum, as well as the ensuing race at Fontana a couple weeks later at the end of that month. and tie that in. Maybe I'll change my mind and we'll do 2 separate ones. It depends on timing of everything and all that. But yes, I am here to announce that that is a race that I am now planning on adding to the trackside schedule for next year. So it's going to be very busy here these next couple of months. We got Vegas this week. We're looking to do Phoenix in the beginning of November to wrap out the season. Then we'll start with the Clash, and then a couple weeks later, now that the schedule has been posted, Fontana at the end of February. So if you guys like the trackside stuff on top of what we do, of course, here on the channel and everything else, look forward to more of that. So what that's going to look like or what kind of access it's going to be, they didn't even have any question. I mean, the interesting thing is when I called the phone and set up the tickets on that, they didn't even know where the pit road was going to be, which I thought was interesting. I assume it's going to be on the front stretch, but I don't know how that's going to work. Bowman Gray Stadium, if I'm not mistaken, they have it on the outside of the track, don't they? Or at least in NASCAR Racing 3, it was like that. So it was like cut into the section where the main part was. But one way or the other, we're looking to certainly cover that action there. Fingers crossed, we'll see. I'm sure it's going to be very competitive on the credential side there. But we're certainly going to toss our own hat in the ring and try to cover who's going to finish last in the very first next-gen race. And a first very unusual race here as well. I guess we'll have to put it with the same statistics as the Bud Shootout in the past. I guess it's more of a toss-up here, even though it's going to be kind of its own thing. I guess we can figure out how to really figure that into the statistics there, or we have to start a whole new page. You never know if any of these traditions are going to last more than 1 year to the next. We certainly had the Daytona Road Course last year, or this year rather, but that didn't last too much longer. But that's one that we're certainly looking at here. So that'll be something exciting to talk about here too. That's like NASCAR at Soldier Field. Yeah, go figure. Yeah, I don't know. It's going to be weird. I've never actually been to the LA Memorial Coliseum. Which may surprise you. I mean, from California, I studied in Southern California before. It was actually south of that, though. I studied in Orange County, and Orange County people hate being told that they're from LA because it's such a world of difference. They have more office buildings and less, I don't know. Less what? I don't know. Actually, they have a good amount of office buildings in LA too, so I'm not even sure if that's accurate. But it's just kind of how all that shakes out. Yeah, that'll be interesting. So we've already begun plans on that, and so at the beginning of February, we'll kick off our 2022 schedule with the action down there in LA, and then Fontana a couple weeks after that as well. So yeah, that's going to be really interesting to see. With pit road being behind a building, yeah, it could be. I mean, I have no idea. I mean, wherever it is, I mean, I kind of imagine if there's any way I could be in the infield, like in the middle of it there, and actually see what's happening. If the car is just going to pull off onto the grass, I don't know. If they're just going to convert that into something like on a dirt track or something, or if they're going to pull back out of the parking lot. I don't even know how all the logistics of that are working. Again, the people on the phone that were setting it up, they didn't have much really helpful information. I called about 3 or 4 days after the announcement came up this past week. It'll, whatever it is, we'll figure it out. Somebody's got to finish last in it. That'll be what we'll look at. So that'll be interesting. And now it sounds like it's going to be an invitational event. So you're going to have not just the pole winners or stage winners or everything. How many drivers that's going to be, it's going to be hard to tell. Even that's coming up. Leave it to NASCAR to shoot from the hip here and not entirely have everything planned out, but at least enough of it that we can kind of point at it and say, well, yeah, let's go ahead and do that. So that'll be the thing. The only bit of information I got on it was that it sounds like it's going to be just a one-day affair. So even though they're having practice and qualifying everywhere, it sounds like they're just going to kind of cram it all into one day. So, which is great. We'll pretty much just drive down there Saturday, do the event, and drive back that night and probably do that. Probably not even stay at a hotel the second night. So that's the one advantage. I mean, for once, NASCAR coming to California one extra time, I got to admit my bias in that. I'm certainly excited about it. I hate it for people that bought tickets for the Clash, but I'm glad that Daytona is compensating them as best they can under the circumstances. I think the problem is after, really not a bad Clash on the road course this year. That one seemed fine. I wasn't really that thrilled with it. But after a disastrous one a couple of years ago with Eric Jones winning it, with just crashes left and right, perhaps the modern racecraft demands something a bit closer to a Bowman Gray Stadium. And probably no better way to do that than try it somewhere. So, of course, the comparisons to the Cars movies already being made at the same time, but that'll be one to look at too. Alrighty. Okay, Bowman Gray does have his pits on the outside. Okay, thank you. Yeah, yeah, exactly. They were selling tickets for the Clash earlier, and then they changed that around. And then there was, they're actually selling tickets for Fontana before they had that date settled. I actually just received the invoice this week to actually confirm the dates for that. So we're getting that set up here. So it's going to be really cool. We're going to get a lot of good stuff coming up here, and that's a big part. So I definitely want to make sure to touch on that as well. So we'll jump into trivia here. And we'll do the show and tell segment here at the same time. So we'll bring this back out. Anything else I didn't cover on that? I know it's been just an absolutely jam-packed week here these last few days. I feel like I'm just recovering from it today here. But very excited to get the Field Fillers episode up and get that set so we can kind of move forward to the next projects here. And there's a couple exciting things I got coming up here pretty soon. But we'll get that rolling too. And big thanks again to the Patreon members out there, patreon.com/LastCarOnBrock. If you want to be a part of getting your name on the magnet for our future races and be entered in a drawing to win it after those races, you can join any level of that as well. That funding really helps doing our trackside stuff because, again, we're just a small organization here and build from one race to the next there. If you're unable to join the Patreon, the best thing you can do is share the videos on this channel. We're still trying to grow as best as possible here and get you guys some more content going forward. Hope to be updating a lot more frequently than this past summer, but this summer we've been able to catch up on so many things, including the J.D. McDuffie audiobook, as well as working on this Rise of the Field Fillers episode. I have another project that's coming up next month that's almost done. I'm going to get that done this week, and, of course, getting ready for our trackside stuff. So we'll see from there. So again, the categories for the Trivial Pursuit thing: NASCAR, pits, teams, tracks, drivers, and the wild card. Those are your categories: NASCAR, pits, teams, tracks, drivers, and the wild card. We'll see if we can do some live stream, at least one live stream during the Vegas weekend. I know I did that at Fontana a couple of years ago. Haven't been able to do that for races really since then. I'd love to be able to do that there. I'd hope Vegas would have better Wi-Fi reception. I'm going to bring my camera one way or the other and see if we can set something back up, maybe at the hotel room after, one day or something like that, figure out. We'll find out, but we'll see if we can work something out there and have that be part of the experience for you guys. Thank you again for the super chat there, Beast of Metal. I feel like this is an instance where the old super stretch grandstands at Daytona would have been useful so they could set up the 0.4 mile track there. Yes, the Battle of the Beach was great. Very good point on that, Beast of Metal. I mean, that was the thing that had some great racing out there, gave us, of course, that legendary clip from the late, great Mike Stefanik. And we just haven't really had that since then. It's unfortunate. They had a good show out there. Hopefully we'll have something work out here at LA and try something different. And again, if it just becomes a rotating venue and they bring it to some other stadium or something, that would be great too. But we'll just see what we can do. But that'll be a whole other story to figure out too. All righty. Okay, so we got tracks, got a couple for tracks here so far. Okay. So, again, the categories are, for those of you just joining in here, NASCAR pits, teams, tracks, drivers, and the wild card. Those are your 6 categories here. You can go ahead and pick which one you like, and we'll go ahead and jump into those. All right, let me get a little bit more here. And we'll get situated here for the next round. All right. Okay. So we got a couple things here. So first of all, I think I showed both of these in the video. I know I showed at least one of them. So Andy Belmont, what I always like to feature in a lot of these videos in the Rise of the Field Fillers section is whenever a driver gets produced in diecast And Belmont was certainly no exception, even being sponsored by the Dr. Diecast company, which guys correctly pointed out actually somehow didn't get sued by Nintendo of America, or at least not immediately, in using the Dr. Mario logo for their car. So a couple of his paint schemes were made. The 1994 scheme you saw in the video, there's one version of that, but there's these as well. First and foremost is the 1992 FDP brakes machine. Let's bring that into focus there. Really nice production of that here, actually. Get a good sense of that. And of course, the picture of him before his wife Jennifer cut his hair there and helped him get through a technical inspection. Really interesting paint scheme on this. The 24 scale and 43rd scale of this is really hard to find. But if you're ever interested, if the video has inspired you to check out and pick up an Andy Belmont diecast, they're pretty easy to find in 64 scale here. And a really nice piece on here too. A little bit lighter color than that, than it looked like in the old pictures there. I think it said it was Calypso green in the original team trading card there. So it looks more teal on this one. But this is that color scheme that, of course, he was waiting. His pit crew member was standing in turn 1 at Pocono and saying, like, okay, make sure you don't hit the brakes until you see me. And I'm sure if somebody was standing there against a green hill wearing teal and pink, would stand out at least a little bit. That was certainly the case there with that. So there's that one. And then this one here was actually signed by him. I found this one not too long ago. His 2003 scheme with Verizon was even made. And this is even kind of a later Racing Champions style, making an ARCA car, which is pretty hip. So they did a really nice job on this one here. You don't usually see too many ARCA cars to begin with, at least from this time period. But they made a nice promo of this one with the car that he ran and the Race for Shannon paint scheme. It doesn't actually have the Race for Shannon logo on the hood. That would have been kind of a cool touch, but clearly this was made before that happened. But the Continental Fire and Safety and the use the VZ number. I didn't realize Verizon had that collect call number at the time I did this project, but it says right here, this little yellow star, like save on collect calls. So it was very much a part of that same time period with the 1-800-COLLECT or the 10-10-345. You know, but those have all gone by the wayside, but Verizon's still here and, still having a presence. Well, heck, you just talk about the IndyCar race today. They still have a presence there. And now you got this whole different deal here. So, yeah, kudos to the folks at Racing Champions on producing this one here as well. I thought it had a really neat design here as well. So definitely wanted to show those. Another aspect, now another idea for a little bit of thing of show and tell. I have something for our Cleveland viewers here tonight. And those of you probably will know exactly why when you see this. Does this paint scheme look familiar? Probably would from a very popular tweet that was just posted yesterday by, oh gosh, who was the person that originally posted it? The very humorous video, well, I mean, fortunately, hopefully nothing serious happened beforehand. A fender bender, to say the least, in the city of Cleveland. And then suddenly this car rolls up in go-kart form. I just happen to have right here a Jeff Bodine fan club press kit here with that most iconic of Phillips paint schemes from the 1998 season. And building on the one we did, the Michael Holligan one last week, seemed like it just kind of worked out that this is going to be the one to feature this week. So we got this one on here as well, featuring an absolutely beautiful shot of the car here. I know I posted this on Twitter last week, but check that out right there. Easily one of the best paint schemes on the number 7 car, I have to say. Sadly, wasn't made in the 64 scale. They made Michael Waltrip's car, which was very similar, but it didn't have this light blue transition behind the number. That was a big difference. And Klossner Furniture bought up the space on the quarter panels. And it was a Chevy, to say the least. So this one on the Ford Taurus, one of my favorite paint schemes back then. Great section here. So I got the caption and stuff on the back here. 1998 marks the first full season for Matei Motorsports, the Phillips Racing team with Jeff Bodine as driver, and Jeff's 19th year of NASCAR Winston Cup Series competition. Last season, Jeff boasted 2 poles at Charlotte and Atlanta. The Atlanta pole in the season finale was the fastest lap posted in Winston Cup Racing's modern era at 197.478 miles per hour, this being the pavement that was just tore up this year and is now being changed to whatever NASCAR decided to reconfigure that track as for next season. Jeff posted 3 top 5s, 10 top 10s, and accumulated more than $1.1 million in winnings during the 1997 season. So again, and it's got the caption on there. We got another good little picture here as well. We'll show you. This shows that nice blue transition on the side there. So Jeff Bodine there in the Phillips uniform and the number 7 car there. Again, beautiful paint job. And it's actually interesting. This is actually this was designed as a press kit, or it's designed as a fan club kit, but it was used as a press kit. Actually, has a blank happy birthday card on here too. So I guess they sent these out during the '98 season for fan club members' birthdays. So that's pretty hip right there. Really a lost art. I'm trying to bring that back to some extent with the Patreon here. I actually had another newsletter just mailed out today here for somebody to rejoin the group. But yeah, what do we got here? We got, let's see, we got a 98 membership. We got a fan club membership application here. Individual membership, $12. Family membership up to 4 people for $15. You can renew with your 1997 member number on here. So you got that. Let's see, Pete Peterson is crew chief for the Phillips team from Clemens, North Carolina. Jim Matei purchased majority ownership of Jeff Bodine Racing in August of 1997, now called Matei Motorsports, a private investor from Dallas, Texas, who provides venture capital for companies in various industries. Scott Matei and Jim's son serves as business manager of Matei Motorsports. Then we got a page here of Jeff's results from 1997, which unfortunately were not great. Had a few DNQs here. Finished 44th at Sears Point. The last driver to finish worse than 43rd. So at least in the Cup Series. Let's see. Purchased, yeah, of course, mentioned driving the number 7 car, purchasing the team from Alan Kowicki's estate in 1993. Felix Sabatas, of course, the executor of the estate at the time. 37 career pole awards, 17th overall in the 1996 Winston Cup point standings. 1982 NASCAR Winston Cup Rookie of the Year, Jeff Bodine. There's a press release here as well on Phillips Company here that sponsored the number 7 car. And I got the address here. A Roberta Hamburg, excuse me, was originally the manager of the Jeff Bodine fan club. So shout out to her as well. It's a very well produced and well detailed collection here of material. Love these folders here. I'll tell you what, me as like a kid, I would have used like these folders like in my school notebooks or something like that. Put some 3-hole punch through that because that's just awesome. I love when they put something like this together. But just a little bit of a capture of a different time there, certainly for sure. So, oh, and then we got the lineup here on this with the 1998 Winston Cup schedule on the back of it there. One of Jeff's best runs that year. He actually was really good at Sears Point that season. He and Ricky Rudd were battling in the top 10. They both spun each other out in turn 11, however, and dropped further back in the lineup there. And then, of course, at the end of the season, this ends up being Michael Waltrip's ride. I think when they went to the Japan exhibition race, they had already put Michael in the car at that point. And Hot Wheels made a die cast of Jeff Bodine, but they put Michael's car in there. So that transition seemed to be like so sudden that I think a lot of people were kind of just getting ready for it back then. But yes, the one of these here mentioned from me. Where is it? Oh gosh, where is it? Find it here and vamp until I can find it. Yes, _Little Gems video from September 18th. If you find that on there, I retweeted it on there as the NASCAR. How bad have you got it? Yeah, the famous go-kart car, of course, commemorating this paint scheme here. I saw a later update that I guess apparently they I don't know if somebody confiscated or towed that car, which would be a shame. Those are like really fun go-karts. They had those at Bristol when we went there in 2007. Yeah, definitely shout out to anybody that remembers the 1998 Jeff Bodine paint scheme there on that one. So definitely want to make sure to mention that on the show here tonight. All righty. So where are we on this? Are we still leading with tracks? I saw we had a few people pick tracks for that category here. Ace is pretty good instead of Home Depot and Lowe's. Yeah, there we go. I guess we don't have reason to see. I know it's been a little while since we did the picks. We're probably okay. Here we go. Yeah, I see 3 for tracks here. Tracks by 4, no other categories. Okay. Yeah, we'll go ahead and do tracks here. Because it looks like we had a few of you guys on that one. And we'll wrap up with that here for tonight. All righty. Okay. Okay, here we go. So, first question tonight for our trivia segment. What Winston Cup driver ran the first exhibition laps under the lights at Daytona? Bob, does this track have lights? It does now. What Winston Cup driver ran the first exhibition laps under the lights at Daytona? That's our first question for tonight. Go ahead and post your answers in the comments. Let everybody else check out here at the same time. Doot, 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 doot. All righty. Okay, we got guesses for Dale Earnhardt. We got guesses for Richard Petty, Lake Speed, Jeff Gordon, Ted Musgrave. What Winston Cup driver ran the first exhibition laps under the lights at Daytona? What Winston Cup driver ran the first exhibition laps under the lights at Daytona is our first question for the evening. The answer is Dale Earnhardt, indeed, the man in black. Dale Earnhardt is the correct answer. Next question, where do drivers land their private planes when they race at the Rock? Ooh, how about that? There's a good question. Where do drivers land their private planes when they race at the Rock? Yeah, give that one some thought there. That's a different one. Don't look it up. Try to guess it. I have no idea. I have zero idea what that is. Oh, I want to also mention this too. Thank you so much to those of you, Bernard Pollard, who I think it's been fantastic how eager he has been to learn about NASCAR and understand it better. This past year was posting some questions about lap traffic and why anybody would be out there in slow cars. Thank you so much to everyone that was sending comments to him, referring him both to my book on J.D. McDuffie and the Field Fillers series. I was hoping he'd be in the chat here tonight. I haven't seen him in there. If I have missed you here, Bernard, definitely make yourself known. But yeah, thank you so much to you guys recommending that. I think it's great. People being into the sport and wanting to know more about it. And yeah, if there's anything else that helps on that, certainly great. So thank you guys for bringing it up. I shared some links last night when I saw those after getting back from the dinner there. And I was like, wow, it's cool to see people talk about this. And I'm certainly eager to talk about the teams at the back of the field there. So kudos to you guys on that as well. Our question here again, where do drivers land their private planes when they race at the Rock? That is our next question. Yeah, I haven't a clue. I don't have a clue either. Yeah, the infield, who knows? In the Applebee's parking lot, outside the track, in the infield, some local regional airport, in the Applebee's. Well, a couple people I did in the Applebee's parking lot. Oh, no, that's just you twice, Mark. Okay, there you go. Rockingham Regional Airport. Yeah, I don't. Your guess is as good as mine. We suddenly went to 11 on the tricky question section here. Grass airstrip behind backstretch. Yeah, there you go, Austin. See something like that. All right, here we go. I'll read it off one more time. Where do drivers land their private planes when they race at the Rock? And of course, your newer fans out here, we're talking about Rockingham Speedway, site of Carl Long's flip and Joe Ruttman's last place finish in 2004. The answer is the Rockingham Drag Strip. Rockingham Drag Strip. Oh, there you go. Focuses. Rockingham Drag Strip is the correct answer. Grass airstrip behind backstretch. Austin Foster, I think you're pretty close to it. Although drag strip probably be paved. Infield, I mean, you guys are all really close to it. Outside the track, I mean, Glen 7000, you're like right on it too. Yeah, okay. Wouldn't have guessed that at all. Rockingham drag strip. That was entirely too hard. Good pick on the tracks category. We'll see what we get here. All right. Let's see. What track claims to be NASCAR's fastest since the advent of restrictor plates? What track claims to be NASCAR's fastest since the advent of restrictor plates? Yeah, drag strip. Yeah. Is it long enough? I mean, private planes. I mean, we're talking prop planes, jet planes. I'm no aviation expert. I defer to Blanco Lirio or the types out there to get the particulars of such things. But yeah, that'd be my guess. What track claims to be NASCAR's fastest since the advent of restrictor plates is the question. What is the answer? I'm just checking out here at the same time. All righty. Hang on. There we go. By the way, I love the comments there about the using we transitioned from Star Wars film names to James Bond names, I guess, for the field filler series. That's a hoot there. So really enjoy that. Yeah, this game here, I saw asking about this. The game is actually copywritten in 1998. We've seen questions from the 98 season on here. So it must have been made midway through the 98 season. But yeah, that is on here. So anything at that time would be the answer, of course. One more time, what track claims to be NASCAR's fastest since the advent of restrictor plates? The answer is Atlanta. Atlanta. Beanboy 89, Eric Banton, I think you were first on that. Yeah, Michigan is a good guess, but Atlanta is what it's going for. Yeah, Atlanta is the correct answer. Yeah, it's kind of interesting. I mean, obviously, we talk about the Jeff Bodine thing here, the qualifying record that was set when they added the dog leg there. Very different time period there. I remember there was a time where they were trying to come up with a nickname for Atlanta, and there was actually a competition for it. And I remember two candidates particularly. One of them was going to call it the Screaming Peach, which I thought was going to be really cool. I thought they were going to go with that. But that was a rejected one. The other one that was rejected was the track Too Fast to Name, a parody, of course, of the track Too Tough to Tame for Darlington. I always thought both of those were pretty good. I don't know what they eventually went with. I guess nowadays with whatever their reconfiguration is going to be, it's anyone's guess. So yeah, that one comes up to mind. You said Atlanta as well, RJ. Okay, right on. Did I miss you? I must have missed you. There we go. All righty. Next question. What track's inaugural 1961 race, the Volunteer 500, was won by Joe Weatherly? What track's inaugural 1961 race, the Volunteer 500, was won by Joe Weatherly? That is our next question. The Screaming Peach reminds me of them Duke boys. Exactly. See, it would have been great. I don't know why they didn't go with it. I remember I think it was a NASCAR.com feature years ago. But I do remember those two stand out, the Screaming Peach and the track Too Fast to Name. Either of them would have been fantastic. I have no clue what they've picked. What track's inaugural 1961 race, the Volunteer 500, was won by Joe Weatherly. Seeing a lot of Bristols here, and it is indeed the track we just wrapped up at Bristol. Correct. All right. Okay, next question here. In the tracks category, what track was built on the site of the historic Kaiser Steel Mill? What track was built on the site of the historic Kaiser Steel Mill? Bristol, the town in 2 states, exactly. The drag strip Rockingham question is still my favorite so far. It has to be. All righty. What track was built on the site of the historic Kaiser Steel Mill? We got guesses for Pocono, California. Pocono. All righty. A lot of you got it. It is indeed the track we're going to in February, California, or AKA Fontana, AKA Auto Club Speedway. Any of those is correct. The WOF Hornet, it looks like you were the first one on that one, just ahead of Maserati 9. On here, Bean Boy 89. Sean the Pug Productions, Eric Banton, RJ Bandsman, number 68, Charles Peterson Jr., Bill Jackson, Beast of Metal. Its question was just entirely too easy for you guys. Okay. What track, next question, what track is home for the world-famous Speedway Club? What track is home for the world-famous Speedway Club? Don't look it up. Try to go ahead and guess in the chat here. I see you looking it up. Don't look it up. What track is home for the world-famous Speedway Club? That is our question. The California Speedway would be fine. That was always fine. It had a nice logo where it did like the little spotlights, like the Hollywood Hills thing. That seemed perfectly fine. But I mean, but Auto Club has done some cool things. Actually, if you're a AAA member, it sounds like this is a commercial, but it's not because they're not paying. I don't have any advertisers on this besides the YouTube ads. If you're a AAA member, they got some really good discounts on tickets, and especially a section if you want to get at the very end of turn 1, so you get a good view up the pit road, which is like the iconic shot at the track. They got good deals for you on that, so definitely look that up if you're interested. And I'll be there, so if you're in the area, that's one to look at there. What track is home for the world-famous Speedway Club? We got guesses for Darlington, Indy, Charlotte, Indy, Atlanta, Texas. Okay, we're all over the place. So let's find out the answer. The answer is Charlotte. I thought it was Texas. I thought for sure it was Texas, but I guess maybe the Speedway Club didn't exist at the time. Charlotte is the correct answer. Eric Banton, you were the first one on that one, just ahead of Bill Jackson. WOF Hornet, and so forth from there. Yeah, just guessing. Yeah, that was a good guess. I thought for sure it would be Texas. All right. Okay, come on. What track? This one cracks me up because I'm thinking of a Simpsons sketch. What track habitually plays Monster Mash over the public address system? Which Simpsons episode was that? The one where they're always trying to play like a love song and they keep playing Monster Mash and the DJ's just, oh, got it. Like I forgot which one that was. The question again, which track habitually plays Monster Mash over the public address system is the question. It's like, well, for you lovebirds out there, this song's for you. And then it plays the Monster Mash. So stupid. I love it. I mean, there really are few things better on TV than classic Simpsons. I mean, I'm not saying anything revolutionary here, but I mean, it really is true. Good times. Good times. What track habitually plays Monster Mash over the public address system? We got several guesses for Dover and the Monster Mile. Indeed, the same one and the same. And the answer is indeed correct. It is Dover. You guys got it. Stephen Deswan, you looks like you were the first one on that one. So right on. Just ahead of Maserati 9. Maserati 9 a little quick to the gun there on that. Same boo earns. Yeah, there you go. Oh, Bean Boy, thank you for the research here. Just looked into the rock drag strip at Google Earth. Length is 5,200 feet, which is enough for small jets to land and take off, and more than enough for most small prop planes. Thank you. Okay, good. I figured one of you guys would at least be into aviation here, so I do appreciate that. Stephen Deswan, yep, you're right on it. Good for you. Let's see. Here we go. Oh, this is timely. Who sang the national anthem for the inaugural Las Vegas Winston Cup event? Hey, that's timely. Who sang the national anthem for the inaugural Las Vegas Winston Cup event? All right. Doo-doo. All righty. I guess it's for Wayne Newton, Bruce Campbell dressed as Elvis, Willie Nelson. That's a great guess, WF Hornet. I don't know who's doing it this year. I got to start. I'm starting already the preview article for this week, and I need to check up on that. We'll find out. Simpsons now owned by Disney. Yeah, that's crazy enough already. They're definitely not the counterculture that they once were. Neil Diamond, Faith Hill. I'll read it again here for anybody that jumped in. Who sang the national anthem for the inaugural Las Vegas Winston Cup event? That would be 1998. And again, this made in 1998. It still has some early 98 questions. Kind of weird how that works out. I guess it was made in, I guess it wasn't made on New Year's Day, but there you go. All right. Who sang the national anthem for the inaugural Las Vegas Winston Cup event? The answer is Joe D. Messina. Joe D. Messina. Wouldn't have guessed in that one. I know very little of the music scene, and I would not have got that right. Wayne Newton sounded right to me, although I did like Bruce Campbell dressed as Elvis. Kevin Lankinen. Celine Dion, maybe. There you go. Yeah, Jody Messina. What track? Next question here. We'll do a couple more here and then wrap up here. We're getting up to an hour and a half. What track has been called the Augusta National of Speedways? Not familiar with that one. Not familiar with that one. Not familiar with that nickname. But what track has been called the Augusta National of Speedways? Yeah, any guess would have been good. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Could have been Backstreet Boys for all I know. I mean, I don't know. TLC or something. What track has been called the Augusta National of Speedways? All right. Darlington. I'm going to spam it till I get it right. Is it Darlington? We got Bristol, Pocono, Atlanta, Daytona, Texas. We're kind of everywhere on this. All right, here we go. What track has been called the Augusta National of Speedways? The answer is Martinsville. Martinsville. Would not have guessed that. I thought with the Augusta part, it was going to, well, let's see. Okay, now, I was going to say, are we talking Northeast or are we talking, is that Georgia? I mean, if it's Georgia, then I guess it would be Atlanta, but Martinsville is the answer they were going for. Yeah, I never heard anybody call it the Augusta Nationals of racing. That's absurd. I've never heard that. But I don't know. Okay. Yeah, let's see. We can get that. Okay. Yeah, learn something new every day. Exactly. Okay. What track is famed for cautions caused by deer, woodchucks, and a lone chicken? I guess not at the same time. What track is famed for cautions caused by deer, woodchucks, and a lone chicken? That's the actual question. No green jacket, but a clock. Yeah, there you go. What track is famed for cautions caused by deer, woodchucks, and a lone chicken? This here. Yeah, chicken. Correct. You did hear that correct, RJ. What track is famed for cautions caused by deer, woodchucks, and a lone chicken is the question. Okay, I'm seeing a lot of Poconos on here. Is it indeed Pocono? It is indeed Pocono. Stephen Light, as recently as 2012, struck a woodchuck at Pocono. I think Neil Bonnet hit a deer, and I don't know what happened to the chicken, but it probably wasn't too good. Probably was like that. Well, I did hear about the bunny rabbit in the IndyCar race today, so I guess there was that too. A little timely with that as well. Okay, I'm going to do one more question here. I know I teased this last week on our show, but I did obtain some other trivia questions. We did the playing card ones, but I think those were a little bit too easy. But I haven't tapped into the little blue box that we got here. Now, this is a Richard Petty themed trivia set. It's like Trivial Pursuit. It's like this, but card form, made back in 1998. So actually, same year. Actually, maybe it's probably going to have some of the same questions. Now that I think about it, maybe not. So let me pick one out of this, and we'll do that. So let's pick one from the end here. Alrighty. So we got an interesting, little cards here. So we'll do one here. Let's see. Here we go. It has 5 categories. So I guess I could do this for future ones here. The categories on here are Pure Petty, Daring Drivers, Rolling Thunder, Hot Tracks, and Super Sponsors. So so we're getting really more specific. So we got petty questions. It's basically like this. You got petty questions, drivers, NASCAR, I suppose, tracks, and sponsors. So those are your 5 categories. So this is kind of an interesting split on this. So, okay. Oh, you see, Austin, you still got those questions all over the place too. Okay, yeah. Do you have a preference? I'll go ahead and, yeah. You guys want to go ahead and do a vote on that? We'll do that, and then we'll just do it by category there. So the categories again are Pure Petty, Daring Drivers, Rolling Thunder, Hot Tracks, and Super Sponsors. See, we're always putting something back into the show here. So we'll get some more for you guys. I'll let you guys jump into that. Maybe we'll do a couple here if you guys want those. You want to stick with tracks, drivers. Okay, I'm seeing a couple for super sponsors now. 3, 4. Okay. The Fender rolls. There you go. All right, let's go and do the sponsor one here. Maybe we'll do one of each here on this one. But we'll start with the sponsor one. All right, here we go. Under the super sponsors category, what tool company was a sponsor of John Andretti's number 37 car in 1996? What tool company was a sponsor of John Andretti's number 37 car in 1996? Wow, see? Okay, right on. Right off the bat, we're getting some good ones. So don't look it up. Try to guess. What tool company? It's actually a little misworded here. What tool companies were a sponsor of John Andretti's number 37 car in 1996? There's actually 3 answers. If you get any one of them, I mean, well, it's worded badly, so any of them would be a good one. Or is it one of these? Oh, hang on. I'm sorry. I misread it. It's a multiple choice. So it gives you 3 options, and one of them is right. Okay. So never mind. It is one. It's one company. Already we're having problems. Okay. So it's one tool company on his car in 1996. I'll let you guys just guess it. But it gave you 3 options here. That would probably make it too easy. You guys are too good. I'm sure you could guess it. So we'll find out. All right, we got guesses for STP, Craftsman, Mac Tools, Craftsman's, Matco, Husky, DeWalt. Okay. And the answer is Mac. Mac Tools is correct. Your site is as bad as mine. I'm sure it's worse. I'm sure it is absolutely worse. I actually do get my eyes checked after we go to Vegas, but unfortunately it is after Vegas. So there you go. The answer is indeed Mac. So, yeah, Eric Banton, you were the first one on that. Charles Peterson Jr., RJ Bansma, and Beanboy89, you got it. Yeah, the 3 options were Snap-on, Mac, or Craftsman. Okay. Let's see. I'll just do each one on here. In Richard Petty's 200th win at the Firecracker 400, Richard and Cale led from lap 14 on, all but how many laps? So, okay, here we go. Let me read that again. In Richard's 200th win at the Firecracker 400, Richard and Cale led from lap 14 on, all but how many laps? So all but how many laps after lap 14 did both Richard Petty and Cale Yarborough lead? Apparently they didn't lead them all, but how many did they not lead for that time? Got to dissect these questions here a little bit. Okay, we got numbers here. We got 1, we got 4, we got 20, we got 5, we got 3, 16, 3. Richard's 200th win at the Firecracker 400. Richard and Cale led from lap 14 on, all but how many laps? Had to be during pit stop, so I'll go with 4 laps. Oh, goodness. Beast of Metal, I got you there. Yeah, certainly hoping that goes okay there for the family member there for sure. All righty. Richard's 200th win at the Firecracker 400. Richard and Cale led from lap 14 on, all but X number of laps. The answer is 16 is the correct answer. 16. Who came close without going over? Nick Cosell, you got 14. Oh, no, Eric Banton, you got 16 on the money right there. Excellent. Okay. Seriously, some of these are multiple choice, and some of them don't give you options. Okay. Okay. Here we go. This is a good one for the last one today. Last question for the evening here, folks. This is from the hot tracks category. I saw some requests for tracks again here, so we'll do that to wrap up. What track held the first super speedway race at night? Was it Charlotte, Raleigh, or North Wilkesboro? What track held the first super speedway race at night? Charlotte, Raleigh, or North Wilkesboro? Probably shouldn't have given you the options, but there you go. Which one did have lights? Track held the first super speedway race at night. All righty, we got ones for Charlotte, we got ones for Raleigh. There we go. What track held the first super speedway race at night is the question. Yeah, so it's good. So if we ever run out of questions on that thing, we are good on this. There's how many we got in here. We got a book in here. So I was assured that this is more than like 1,000 questions. So that's that should put us through at least another 4 generations of Cup cars here. So we'll see here. All right. All right. Guesses for Charlotte and Raleigh. Not seeing any for Wilkesboro. The answer is indeed Raleigh Speedway in 1955. Boop. There you go. Whoop, doesn't come into focus. It's a little harder to do that. There's the focal length. Oh, there you go. Almost had it. There you go. There you go. Mr. Magoo cam there. Okay. So we'll put that one in the back here. And we'll go from there. Okay. Well, excellent. Well, thank you so much, everyone, for tuning in. That will do it for the show tonight. Thank you again for tuning in unusual time here to check out episode 8 of Rise of the Field Fillers. If you haven't had a chance to check it out, the video is now live on this channel. We're going to be, well, our next show is probably going to be on the road, if not immediately when we get back. Our trackside coverage for Las Vegas will start on Wednesday afternoon as we travel east and then south to the Las Vegas Motor Speedway and cover the action for the Truck Series, the Xfinity Series, and the Cup Series. Be sure to stay tuned to my Twitter feed at LastCarOnBrock for more updates on that, as well as my website, lastcar.info. We're going to be having the magnet again on the door of the car. If you're interested in joining that, patreon.com/LastCarOnBrock for more information here. And yeah, we'll jump in from there. So thank you again for tuning in, everyone. And we will see you next week, if not immediately when we get back. And we'll have more updates on that too. So have a safe week, everyone. And we'll see you trackside.